This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, and today we have a UFO related interview. A lot of fans have been asking for more UFO content, and we certainly have it today. Returning as a multiple time guest is UFO researcher and author Preston Dennett, who's also very familiar with other areas of the paranormal, and he most recently has done a book with Dolly here, Dolly Safran, and she is a UFO abductee. And this is going to be an interview about her story. And the book is called Cemetery, a True UFO Adventure. And I put the link to purchase the book in the description of this video. Anyone that's interested in purchasing it, there is a Kindle version as well. But I guess I'll throw it to you, Preston, since you're the expert here on Dolly's situation.
Yeah. Thanks, Devin. I'm super excited about this book. It's the kind of book I've always wanted to write. I've written a bunch of books about UFOs and people's contactee stories, but this is the first book that concentrates only on one single person. And Dolly's case is quite a bit more extensive than anyone else I've ever interviewed. In fact, I would say it's the most extensive case that I've ever interviewed someone, and for that matter, really even read about. Dolly is what I would call a fully conscious contactee ever since age 14, when she had an experience which really woke her up. And she was able to really answer a lot of the questions I had about this phenomena, confirm a lot of stuff, fill in the blanks, connect all the dots. It's truly an amazing account, and I'm really fortunate to have hooked up with her. And what's really interesting is, Dolly had decided to go public with her story some years earlier, and I was looking for a good researcher to tell her story. And she asked her ET contacts about it and told them that she was having kind of a hard time finding someone who was a good fit. And they actually gave her my name, referred me to her, or her to me. And so that was really humbling and very cool and quite a shock to me. Though I have to say it's not completely unique. That did happen previously and has happened since. But it was really kind of an amazing thing to know that the Greys actually do know about my research. So yeah, that's how this all sort of rolled out.
Yes, and one thing I found interesting from your synopsis is her experience seems to be overall fairly positive. So maybe, Dolly, you could just tell us about how it all began.
It began literally, at first I didn't know. In my youth, right after my birth was interesting. And then at 10 months, I woke up from a nap and started levitating in my own crib. And when I got to the top of the rail, I freaked and I flipped over and I was trying to go back down. And my memory went. And that's my first absolute memory. I never lost it. It was very traumatic and I never forgot. I started displaying abilities in my own home, in my family, and that got everybody's attention really fast. And then I started disappearing. Most of my memories are captions, capsules of time. I didn't have the ability to string them all together or even know if I wasn't crazy or not. The first really traumatic thing for my family was when I was 2.5, my mom was pregnant with my brother. And I was nap time. We're home in the house. She's locked all the doors. She's very, very pregnant. And I disappeared. She called my dad. They called the police. They went out looking for me. Rode, in cars on the streets. They had people all over the place calling for me. And a couple hours later, they got the call and they were taken to a Utotem store. It's like a convenience store on Miller Road in Miami. It's about 6 miles from our house. And I was sitting on the back of the counter, kind of upset. They were trying to get me to tell them what happened. I was having none of it. I only wanted my mom, and I only wanted a red balloon that had been promised to me. That really shook them all up. They ended up changing all the locks, putting locks on the windows, and they got a retired police dog named Heidi. After a while, Heidi started being taken with me. It became an ongoing saga. When I was 14 years old, by that time I was tired of not knowing what the heck was happening to me. I was tired of not getting it. Why can't I remember this stuff? It's important, I thought, to remember. Either that or I was crazy. And so I decided the next time I was going to have an experience like this, I was going to remember. I forced myself to be very calm, to get over myself, and to memorize everything that was happening to me. I was out late one night. It was a school night, and I had my telescope. It's about 1 a.m. My father realized I was still up and said, "Go to bed." And so I packed it down. I came in the house, got ready for bed. And we have these, in Florida, in the Glades, we have these huge jalousie windows. You can almost climb out them. And I was sitting on the edge of my bed, which was right up against my jalousie windows, looking at the sky. Orion was up that night. I loved astronomy, and I loved that particular constellation, so I was watching it. And I started to see a couple, 50, maybe up to 100 lights in the sky that I knew were not stars. And I'm watching them, and I'm thinking, okay, this is it. And oh my God, what am I looking at, And they all paired off into twos, and they started going east, west, north, and south. 2 pairs came down our area over a part of the Glades in Miami where we were living. One of the pair went east toward a place called Dadeland Mall on Kendall Road in Kendall, and the other 2 came down over the back of our property in our house. There were 2 of them, but one went further west. I didn't see where it went. I just saw the one come down over our house. We have trees in our backyard, and after I watched them come down through the atmosphere, they were changing colors. I was memorizing that. And we get to the part where I can actually eyeball this craft, and I realized it's not ours, and I was excited, and I was like, okay, you can do this, you'll remember. And I started memorizing. I was drawing it in my mind, inch by inch by inch, just going up, seeing the whole thing. And when I got up to the 2 ports, they're not round, they were oblong, windows, sluice. And there was a being in each one staring at me. And I stared at them for a second. It hit me. Oh my God, you're being watched. They see you, you see them. And I decided in that moment, this was overwhelming. Oh, no. And I tried to turn and go under my bed. I was going to just dive, It scared me. I passed out after I saw this big blue-white light flash bomb my room. And I was gone. I woke up about 2.5, 3 hours later, and I was on the floor of my room. I was no longer by the window, and I didn't have my own clothes on. They were inside out, backwards, and I was pissed because I missed my opportunity. I was so mad at myself because I became stupidly afraid, and just knew that I should have done it differently, and I was angry. I felt yucky. I could hear my mom in the kitchen cooking breakfast for my dad, and I said, okay, it's a school day, get up, go to the bathroom, get cleaned up, put your clothes on, go in the kitchen. So I did. Her first reaction to me was, make coffee. So I did, and I'm trying to talk to her. Paul Harvey is on the radio, and she's cooking away. And I said, Mom, did you see anything last night? Did you see any lights? She goes, what do you mean? And I said, like a UFO? And she whirled on me, she stuck her finger in my face and went, no. Which meant shut up. So I'm sitting there, and I actually got a cup of coffee, my very first ever. And I was sitting there mulling it over in my head, thinking, this isn't going to go well. I'm going to be sent back to the dream world over this. I'm not going to. I was mad again, and the radio changed from Paul Harvey to the news, and the very first thing that came out of the guy's mouth was 2 Dadeland cops saw UFOs in the sky, and they came down, and their car was chased twice. It swooped down on them twice. They described the whole scene, at which point I became hysterical. Oh my God, this is corroboration. First time in my entire life, I have corroboration, okay? And I started to get really excited. Oh my God, and she realizes this is happening to me, that I I'm being backed up. And she whirled on me again and she said, no, get out of the kitchen. I'm not talking about it. And I was like, so I started to leave the kitchen and my dad was coming in and he heard the whole thing and he said, we'll talk later. You need to go calm down, go meditate. We only have one private room in the house. It's a bathroom. And so I went in the bathroom, turned the light off and sat on the floor and just freaked completely out. I thought, how am I going to do this? How am I going to remember? So I started to meditate and calm down. And then I decided that I was going to replay it in my head. I was going to tick it off second by second by second. And somehow I connected to it. And I felt like I was disembodied somehow. And I was watching it happen. And when I got up to the point where the light flashed, I had my first real memory. And I saw a light beam come down, and then an energy ribbon. And two little grays come in with me. And one of them took me by the hand. I couldn't move. I was frozen in spot. And he took me by the hand and he wrapped his hand around my waist, kind of guide me with him. And I honestly don't know if I was walking at that point. I don't know. He just know that he got me to that ribbon. And I remember seeing it and thinking, oh, what is this? Okay. And he touched it and we immediately became different somehow. I became a light being and I was weightless with him. And we went up that ribbon. And when we got to the top of it, we went through our roof, everything, right through a tree, all of it, and got to the craft. And which I know now is, I call them two-seaters. I think Bob Lazar calls them the sports model. And they had one of the doors open in the side of it. And he pushed me through and I landed on my keister, And I looked up and that's when I remembered what I started remembering my whole life in 5 seconds. I mean, the woman that was sitting there was somebody that I've known my entire life. And I instantly latched onto her and was shocked when I saw her. That was Mama. And I met Mama when I was about almost 6. And I was contacted then. And they brought me up and that's when I met her. And she's like, hey, welcome back. Do you remember me? And I was so freaking out by that point. I literally threw up all over myself. I mean, my whole insides just couldn't take it. And I threw up. They took me to get decontaminated. They gave me clean clothes. They calmed me down more, brought me back in and sat me down again. And they just sort of like let me be for a while. They let me calm down. And I hear this voice in my head, I think. And it's a guy. He says, well, welcome aboard. Do you remember me? And I realized instantly who it was. I knew his voice. He is the interdimensional, disembodied, non-corporeal entity who indwells that craft, and he runs it. He can indwell any craft. He can move around and choose which one he wants. And I nicknamed him Talata because at 6 years old I couldn't say his name to save my life. The TLERA is part of his name, and that was the nickname I gave him. That one little slice of his name, and he let me. So once they calmed me down completely and I realized who he was, and I was just sitting there in shock. I mean, shock. And they walked me around and they started showing me everything and getting me used to it because we didn't stay on that craft. They took me to another craft, which is Talata's main craft. He transferred and we got on board. And we sat there and they said, we're going to talk to you for a little while. We're going to give you a chance to reacclimate. You've got a lot going on and, give you a chance. And they said I was old enough now and I had managed to remember who they are. And they wanted to know what I wanted to do with my life. They wanted to know what I wanted to be. Did I have any ideas? And I thought about it and they were telling me a bunch of things about how I was living here. I was interested in medicine. I was interested in animals. I was interested in ecology, and I had a very broad, even oceanography. I mean, I was just interested in everything. And he said, but we want you to think about what you want to do with us. I want you to work with us. And I sat there and I thought, I'm going to say it, but I don't believe they're going to let me. It's too phantasmagorical. And I said it anyway. I got brave. And I said, I want to fly. And Mama was like, grinning from ear to ear. That's I learned a lot from that moment. And they immediately said, okay, if that's what you want to do, are you serious? Are you really serious? Because they were shooting me full of information at that point of what it was going to be like for me. When they speak to you psychically, you're downloaded. They don't speak in individual words. They throw concepts into your mind. It's all psychic, and they show you everything at once, and it's very, very fast. And it had been a while, or I didn't remember that until that moment that they spoke that way. And it took me a minute to catch up with exactly what was coming at me. He said, we're going to go for a ride. I went, oh, cool. Okay. And Two Grace sat me in the seat and showed me what it was like to sit in the control seat. And they briefed me, briefed on what we were about to go do, where we're going, and what was expected of me. And it took about an hour, I think. It was a long, long brief. And by the end of it, I understood what was happening. I understood where we were going, and I understood that I could help fly. That they were giving me a type of a control. It's not psychic; it's a hand control that I could guide the ship with. But they would still be like, if you go up in an airplane and learn how to fly, you got the co-pilot, the teacher with you, and he's got his hands on the stick. He can take over at any time if you mess up. He's not going to let you go down. And that's what Tolada was there for, and one other Gray, who was going to help pilot the craft. He decided we were going to Saturn. And at the time, I didn't think about what the significance of that was. Why Saturn? Of all the places in this solar system, why Saturn? And when I got there, I realized what he was talking about. First thing that I understood was that Saturn is a pretty big planet, and it has even bigger rings, and it sort of sits away from everybody in orbit around the sun. I call it the lone soldier. A lot of the times when you see it in the sky, you think it's aligning with all the other planets, but it's way the heck out there. Okay, it's a very large orbit. The other thing is that it tilts. They taught me that, and we looked at the rings, and he wanted to show me that the rings are not solid. They were giving me a lesson on the topography of this planet system and all its moons. It has one moon that's really spectacular. It goes counterclockwise. It's not revolving the same way as everybody else. That's cool. And I was just all agog. I was like, woo, this is totally cool. I was gassed up. I started to forget my anxiety completely. Once we got done, we sat outside way back of its orbit. We moved into the space between our sun and that planet. And he said, okay, we're going to go somewhere else. And I said, okay. And he said, let's go to the moon. You want to see the moon? And I love the moon. The moon is spectacular to me. The moon means a lot to me. I have personal history with this. And I said, yes. So we got to the moon, and we orbited the moon in a sort of like a spirograph trajectory. We went all around it 8 times. Really close. Got to see all kinds of really cool things. I got to see the lander. That was totally freaking cool. We went to a place and we soft landed that was on the backside out of eyesight of Earth. And it was like right on the rim. In other words, we were able to see the Earth coming up, but it was, how the moon has phases, the Earth was in phase. And I got to really stare at a very cool view of the moon in phase, or the Earth in phase. Everybody got quiet, and I said, okay, we need you to, come to this conclusion of what you want to do. In other words, they wanted my absolute promise to them, my agreement to flying and what it would entail. And it's quite the task. It's very involved. And they put it all into my head so that I could see what was involved. And I mulled it over. And there was no way you could deter me from that decision ever. And I said, I'm on. I'm going. We're going to go. I'm with you. And they brought me back home. And that's when I got pissed, because at first I didn't remember, but now I do.
If I could just jump in here real quick. Dolly mentioned Mama. Mama is a tall gray, a gray ET that she's been in contact with her whole life. And when I heard Dolly telling the story, I'm like, wow, taken to Saturn, because this is exactly what a West Virginia contactee by the name of Jay Gardner said. when he was 12 years old. They took him on board, sat him in the seat. There was a little joystick. Off they went to Saturn. This is very similar to what another contactee told me, who is a Navy medic, Kevin Kamen, who was taken on board a craft, and they took him to the moon. Very similar to a guy in Louisiana. His name is Tim. They took him on board when he was a little boy, teenager, and again pulled him up to the control room, the helm, said, "Here's how we fly the craft." So as unusual as this may sound, I have to tell you, it is not unique. And I know of other cases. I mean, this is exactly what happened to Raymond Fowler, who is a very well-known UFO researcher. Turns out he's a contactee as well. As a little boy, he says he was taken on board and they took him to see Saturn. This is one of the things they do to sort of wake people up. A lot of contactees go all the way to maybe adulthood, mid-adulthood, or even later, and don't wake up to their memories. Some wake up earlier. It's not at all unusual for people to have encounters at age 1, 2, 3. Many of contactees have eidetic memories. I'm talking to a guy now from France. He went missing from his house for 3 hours. He was supposed to be at school. They could not find him. It was a big to-do. So everything Dolly is talking about is stuff I've heard before. What I like about Dolly's story is she does have outside witnesses to back her up, corroboration. She's got a lot of photographs, moving films, medical evidence. So, and we haven't even gotten into how extraordinary her story really is, but I just wanted people to know that as wild as this sounds, this is what happens to people.
So this evidence is in your book, some of these medical documents and photographs and so forth?
I will not allow my medical evidence. Preston is he can produce it if he wanted to, but to put it out into the public gives you full access to my private life, and I will not allow that. Pictures, yes. Moving film, yes. There are people in the book who are able to corroborate my story, and a few others besides that can be brought forward if need be. I'm protecting myself and others because this is a very large issue, and I don't want to throw myself to the wolves, so to speak. I've been counseled by the Greys on how to handle this, and this is one of the things that they absolutely demanded of my actions when I did what I did.
So they wanted you to talk about this.
I'm the first one that brought it up because I never saw anybody else talking about it, and there's a lot of wild information out there. People on this planet are sadly not as educated as they could be, and there's just a lot of things that are incongruent in educational systems and people's knowledge bases and foundational knowledge. I really, really, really wanted to come forward at that point, and we talked about it. The ETs talked about it with me for almost a full year before I made the move to do so.
Did they ever tell you why they've chosen you to visit all these times?
I'm a generational contactee. My father was a contactee, and many people in my family besides before him and me and all around me. And I think that they were hoping that I would wake up and come to this. They don't force you to do anything, but they watch how we're doing, and they really, really, really were very excited actually when I said, I'm staying awake now, this is it, and I will, do what I know I can do. I'm almost feel like, maybe this is my family being brought along genetically to facilitate my decision to do this.
Yeah, contact is far more common than people realize. It's 1 in 40, maybe 1 in 50 people. As a general rule, it is generational. We have cases now in the literature, and investigators have verified this, that stretch back 3, 4, 5 generations. So if you're having contact, it's very likely your parents or someone in your family will, your children. This is a general rule. They do seem to follow genetic lines. That is a major pattern. They're very interested in people who have strong psychic abilities, which is something they are, it's connected to the genetics. They are sort of fostering that. They're very interested in people who do good work for humanity. So we have a lot of environmentalists, people who work with animals, teachers, nurses, doctors, inventors, this sort of thing. Dolly is a registered nurse. Did not surprise me at all when she told me that, because I can't tell you how many times people tell me, oh yeah, I'm a social worker. I'm an environmentalist. I work for human rights, this sort of thing. So Dolly absolutely fits the pattern of your typical contactee.
And someone's asking on here, how do you contact them when you want to contact them, or is it only when they come to you?
No, I'm very psychic. I'm wide open psychic, and I am connected to Talata as well as Mama. I can get in contact with them psychically, and I do from time to time. It's easy for me to do, and funny thing, you all can do the same thing I do. Every single human being on this planet has innate abilities in your DNA and in your body structure to be psychic. And I know you all have moments of psychic abilities. You have precog, you have deja vu, you have intense moments where somebody's thinking about you and you call them, or I mean, it's 1,000 different ways that you're showing yourself you're psychic. The only problem with that is that society that we live in on this planet has worked very diligently to rob you of fully being aware of yourself and what you're capable of. And so, yeah, it's not surprising that I do what I do. It's surprising to me that you all have lost contact. And ET's actually looking. That's my main message. They want y'all to wake up. They want you all to practice. And when I say practice, I mean practice. It's going to be a little work. And there's a few things that you can do to wake up and use your psychic abilities and be in contact with them. I want you to know that I will never use the word abductee to you. I've never been abducted in my life. I am a contactee. And almost every person on this planet who has been contacted is a contactee. They watch all of us and they have reasons for doing that. And it's mostly medical exams to make sure our genome is staying intact. They care about us. They are our progenitors. They have DNA like we do, and they are of the human genome. They are us, and we are them. And they're our progenitors.
But are they all the same? Because as someone's asking about the reptilians on there, we know that there's all different breeds of aliens, supposedly. So
Okay, I'm going to give you a sort of like a little DNA lesson. You know that there are animals on this planet, and if it's alive, it has DNA. We are interconnected, interrelated with every animal on this planet. We are all have DNA, and it's all the same kind, and it just expresses out differently. You know that animals can interact with one another that are closely related, like a horse and a donkey can become, horse donk or donk horse, or a z-dog, a zebra and a horse. There are different kinds of monkeys or apes that can interbreed with one another. There are bears that can interbreed with one another because their genome is close enough that they can, and they hybridize themselves. We just had an incident in that in South America somewhere. I haven't read it, about it. I heard. Yes, there are different types of genome expressions of DNA among ET. Just like, and I want to bring up another point. We are human beings, human. That is our race. We are all exactly identical to one another genetically. We have the same exact expression of DNA. We are the human genome. The only thing that makes us look different is our ethnicities, and that's because of where we live. Whatever ecological niche we've been in, we've developed traits to make us survive in those niches. Okay, ETs do the same thing. There are some ETs that are wildly out there that would be like the reptilian types that are not. This is okay. Now I'm going to tell you something. I don't know this for sure, but this is my belief, and I've got enough experience that I think I'm correct in saying this. I think reptilians have probably originated on this planet. Eons ago, we did not come from here. We were on another planet in our system, and there was a huge calamity, and somehow the reptilians survived and the dinosaurs didn't. They were all together. They're still here, apparently. Does that make them any less valuable or less part of the universe and the system? No, they have as much right to be as we are, and we do. So yes, there are many types. The Greys kind of have about 3 or 4 different ethnicities among them. They have Greys who are very short, kind of troll looking, big squat guys, and they're kind of blue skinned. And then there are the AI Greys that I think that they developed, actually. That's why they're so small. And they are biological autonomous intelligence, in other words, AI. They do all the hard work for ETs because space is not a safe place for any human genome to be hanging out all the time. Gamma radiation absolutely unstrings your DNA. We know that for a fact. Our people here proved it with 2 astronauts from NASA. They were identical twins. They sent one up to the ISS. He was up there for a little over a year. He came back and they checked his DNA, and oh yeah, it was different. He was not the same anymore. And it took a long time for his DNA to recoup itself and rebuild back to its original, construct. And I'm not sure it's 100% at this point. Gamma radiation absolutely destroys life, period, the end. There's no stopping it from killing a biological anything. If you're outside a magnetosphere, you're in trouble because that's full-on gamma radiation. It's coming at you from everywhere all over the universe, and it will kill you. ETs do not stay in space all the time. That is not how they operate. There are many, many planets in our galaxy that are, have life. They're very well organized, and then there are galaxies all over our universe that have life. It's phenomenal how much life there is. The universe is a huge construct. We live in a physical plane. Our universe, at this part of our universe, we're in the physical mainframe of our reality, our construct here. We come here to learn. That's why we're here in this particular dimension. It's the 3rd dimension, and it's kind of sluicing into the 4th one a little bit. In every physical space throughout our entire universe, there are 12 dimensions hanging in simultaneously at the same time. I'm not going to get into anything bigger than that because it's a lot to explain, but I will say this. There is more than one universe in reality, and we just happen to be in this one. We're all consciousness. We are all operating the same way that Talata operates that ship. This body is a biological construct that we indwell while we're here. And when we're done, we cast it off. It is the life cycle of why we're here. The universe has a huge life cycle, and it pretty much, if you want to know anything about the universe, just look at your body and start picking it apart and learn to see how this all interacts with each other. We have perfect symmetry where we're at throughout the entire universe. We're all related to it. We're related to one another. They are us. We are them. We are all one here in this universe.
Yeah. I'll jump in here because that is a message that I have heard from many contactees. This is what the Greys will tell them. We are us. You are us. We are you. I hear it over and over again. And it's really interesting to hear Dolly talking about how the ship itself is embodied, because this is another thing many contactees have told me, that they have the impression the ship itself was alive. And yes, this is basically, that's the rule, not the exception. Another thing that was really interesting, because people talk about, I saw these Greys and they were unfeeling, they had no emotions, they didn't seem to care how I felt, and they were really short, and they took me on board the craft. But there was, taller Greys who did seem much more loving and were caring and nurturing. And I was having some confusion. I'm like, are these the same Greys we're talking about? No, there are short little AI Greys, 3-4 feet tall, who are not alive. They're not born, they don't die. They are basically androids. Whitley Strieber talked about this. He said he saw them all stacked up like cordwood. I've heard this from other contactees. I asked Dolly about that, and she told me, yeah, they all stored them in a room. So this cleared up something for me. because there are different types of grays. Most of the people I do talk to will describe seeing grays. I've talked to many people who've seen these short blue humanoids. My sister-in-law, she had contact with them. She's an artist, and she drew them. And I showed this picture to contactees who described this, including Dolly. And it's amazing to hear them and see them when they see this picture, because they will start crying. They're like, yes, that is exactly what I saw. And Dolly confirms that, yeah, my sister-in-law's picture, Christine Casara, is very much accurate. So as a general rule, contactees will see different types of ETs. And many researchers, jumping back to the reptilians, do believe that they probably are living on this planet, perhaps underground. I only have a few reptilian cases, so I can't say a lot about them. But I will say that the people who I have talked to have seen them weren't seeing UFOs. They encountered them out in the wilderness somewhere. So that would fit in. But yeah, what I find very interesting, speaking of symmetry, which is the title of the book, and a big message from the ETs, is how there's life that has got a basic symmetry throughout the universe. Is pretty much everyone I've talked to does see what we would call humanoids, beings with arms, legs, a head, two eyes. They follow the same basic form, but just are variations, just like we see on our own planet.
Somebody wants to know, how do they travel such far distances? Did they explain any of this to you?
Yes, I fly, so I absolutely know. Okay, consider the fact that they are extremely advanced beings. They've been around for untold eons, and we are a newcomer, our particular group in this solar system, to their ability. They've gone beyond using buttons and bells and whistles and steering wheels and mechanical devices to do what they want to do. They do everything psychically. They have mastered the ability to use energy and to wield it. And this is how their entity can indwell the craft. We fly the craft using psychic abilities. Nothing is. Bob Lazar was shocked when he saw that there's no connection of anything on the craft. That he couldn't figure how in the hell we were guiding this thing. And then he realized when he saw the pilot's seat what was going on, and that is the pilot and the ship join psychically, and we run it together and we fly together. I command it with my mind. They are light beings. They know how to become interdimensional. They know how to travel interdimensionally. So when we're traveling, one of the things that I had to learn was I don't just get coordinates and go to it. I am taken there first by another pilot, and I'm shown where it is, because psychically I have to have been there and seen it and feel it and know it that way. I need to see the energy of it and where it's located. And then when it's time to travel 280 million light years away, I open up a interdimensional portal, a doorway, and it's unique because it doesn't open in, it opens out into us. In other words, that doorway is that dimension opening up into us, and we're able to get through it. We go right through it, and it takes us to where I know we're supposed to go, and it's instantaneous. I can travel 280 million light years in half a second flat, and that's how they do travel. That's how they're able to go through your roof and bring you out through walls and levitate you. They are beings who know how to use light and energy, and that's it.
Yeah, some people have called them interdimensional time travelers. There's all kinds of theories popping around. It's my assessment we're dealing with extraterrestrials in the classic sense. And I say that because these craft leave landing traces. There's over 1,000 cases of landing traces. These craft appear on radar. These craft and people have physiological effects. People are taken on board, have physical evidence. They're often implanted. There are animal reactions. There's the whole crash retrieval phenomena. Our government does have these craft. You may have heard of Roswell. This is a physical, real phenomena, though they are so hugely advanced. They do have the ability to pull people out of the time stream. And people will talk about being pulled onto a craft and spending 3-4 hours, and they're returned minutes later. Dolly talks about this. So that is not at all unusual. I think people just need to recognize how truly advanced these beings' technology is. They're not a couple of hundred years ahead of us, but probably not even thousands, probably more like millions.
Eons, way past that. They are in the same construct universe with us, most of them. All the grays are in the same dimensional space we are. They operate in it, but they have developed past the point of being locked in here, and they can travel interdimensionally. They know how to use their abilities to get to where they want to go. They are in contact with interdimensional beings as well. They're able to see energy to the point that, think of it this way, you're sitting in your living room, and in your space where you're sitting at, you have 12 dimensions in with you at the same time. You all exist together. You can't see them, but they can see you. They interact with you every day of your life. A lot of people talk about guardian angels, and I find this very interesting because more than likely, it's an interdimensional being that has tried to help you and been there for you and knows exactly who you are. They will follow you. They care about you. It's part of their existence and the reason why they're in that dimension. Because each time they advance, they go up another dimensional space or frequency mentally. You don't physically challenge the frequencies interdimensionally. You mentally challenge them. In other words, it's your consciousness that does it, not your body or physicality of any kind. I hope I answered that.
And what have they told you about when you pass away? You're talking about the body just being something that your consciousness inhabits for a period of time. Did they say what happens when your body dies?
Yes, and you kind of probably already know. If you know how to OBE, out of body experience, your consciousness has left your body for a time and gone and explored the realms that are around you, or the dimensional realms. So when you cast off your physical body, you're immediately there. You're floating around in it. You're in it. You can do anything you want in it. You can go to any. Preston has a word for it. Preston.
Any realm, dimension?
Yes, thank you. A dimensional realm. Okay. And I don't think of it that way, but he uses that word and it's like, perfect. That's perfect. I like that. You can do anything you want. You don't die. Your consciousness is eternal in this universe. It can't, and I don't think even beyond this universe, your consciousness is operating. You just don't know who you are right now because you're cut off from being in contact with it constantly. Another reason to awaken so that you can integrate your memories from your true consciousness to your brain. Your brain's just a physical operating system that allows you to operate in this very dense physical space. That's all it is. It's like a computer that's walking around, walking and talking. But it's still got to hear your dimensional mind, your actual true consciousness. All your memories are in your consciousness. Your body a computer can only do what a computer can do, garbage in, garbage out. It's parameter to handle only that which is programmed into it. And when you're born and you live here, you're being programmed by what you see, feel, hear, and do. But it's still your consciousness that runs that show. And you're not talking to it every day.
This is a big part of the ET mission. It's all about consciousness. They speak almost exclusively with telepathy. I mean, I don't want to say exclusively because they do have a language, but telepathy is a big deal. They are, as I said much earlier, they are very interesting people who have psychic abilities. They will wake this up in people. This is a big part of their mission, is trying to wake us up to our own, I won't call them supernatural abilities because they're not. They are natural abilities to have precognition, telepathy, levitation, all of the stuff, healing. Over and over again, contactees come away from their experiences feeling like they can do Reiki, hands-on healing. This is a huge part of their mission. It's one of their primary missions. It's healing humanity and waking people up. I ended up writing a book where I documented some 300 cases where people were physically healed as a result of a UFO encounter. I started getting these cases very early on in my research. It's what really made me take a deeper look, a second look at what actually happens to people who are taken on board. Because there's an enormous amount of fear surrounding this subject. It can be very scary for people, and often is. And people initially often have nightmares, trauma, insomnia, anxiety. They put locks on their doors, sleep with lights on. But as their encounters continue and they start to remember more and they get over their fear, they start to really wake up and their psychic abilities go off the charts. And this is when the ETs really start to communicate with them and will give them messages. The most common message by far beyond, don't be afraid, we won't hurt you, because that's what they always say when they come, which is true. They will tell you, why are you polluting your planet? You are destroying your planet by cutting down the forests and polluting the air. What is up with the nuclear proliferation? Do you not see how dangerous that is? They told one lady in Maine, if you keep putting out the greed and corruption you're putting out, you're going to destroy your planet. They told her all kinds of things. They told her who you thought were angels, that was mostly us. They told her we've been following your DNA and upgrading it for millennia, including the DNA of animals, particularly dogs and cats, so that they could interact more emotionally with humans. They told her people should start disappearing from this planet. It's being done by them for the universal good. And I bring that up because this is something Dolly talks about, is the possibility that people will be lifted from this planet in the event of an existential crisis. This is a huge theme among the ETs. They are trying to save us from destroying ourselves.
I see. And the one thing I don't understand is why they would be contacting lower level people and not the people with the power to actually change this stuff. Because if they tell people like you and me that we're destroying the rainforests and polluting,
they are.
right?
They are
Okay.
contacting people throughout government, but our government is covering this up. It's a vicious cover up. And this is why we have waves of sightings. They're doing a grassroots movement to announce their presence. Go ahead, Dolly.
Every ET that exists outside of this planet is autonomous. That is their belief and their philosophy. You are in absolute control of yourself at all times, and you have the right. It is your right to be who you are supposed to be. That's how karma works. When they put us here, we were all given that right. We were all free beings, and we had the autonomy to develop as we ought. As with all things in the universe, there is a negative and a positive. And for some reason, negative is taken over here like crazy. And it is lying to you constantly. It is trying to control you. And everybody on this planet has more or less become a slave to the powers that be here. One of the reasons that you feel that the powers that be here are in control are that you've given them that control. You've stopped being an autonomous being in their presence. If every human being on this planet woke up at the same time and realized what was really going on and said, no more, that's it, they would instantly lose their ability to control it worldwide. They would not be able to do what they do. It would not happen because you would know a few things right off the bat and you would act in that direction. You would not stop. They know this. That's why they're doing what they're doing. Evil has a habit of believing its own BS. It'll lie with a teeny seed of truth in it and then go, and will absolutely believe itself, absolutely, without question, and not wake up and not hear the truth. The minute you stop hearing the truth, you're doomed. You're doomed to exactly that which you produce. For a reaction, there's an equal and opposite, there's an equal and or opposite reaction. And if you do evil things, you're going to be evil, and evil will bounce back onto you. If you're a positive person and loving and giving and helping, those things will come back to you. this is one of the reasons we're here. We're here to learn these lessons. We're here to gain wisdom and ascend into their society. They've been waiting for us to learn these things. It's very important that we understand that we're all conscious and we're in source together, and we have all knowledge all the time at our fingertips. But you don't own that knowledge. It's not part of who you are because you haven't experienced it. This is a physical place for you to come to do that. That's exactly why you're here, to learn. And everything you learn becomes part of who you are. You wear it like clothes. It's part of you. And that is what goes with you. That wisdom goes with you when you leave here and live different lifetimes. You go lifetime, 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 lifetime. It's a horror to me that you've got lifetimes and you don't even know what they are. You've been cut off from them. You believe that somebody has a right to tell you how to exist, and that they're always going to do for you what's right, but they don't. They do often. They're bad. They do bad things.
What's the hierarchy of these gray aliens? How does it work? Is there a president type person, or how does it work?
No. They are wide open psychic. They hear each other at all times, 24/7. They're able to hear every level of consciousness like you do when you leave this body and you go to be in the realms. Everybody hears everything. Everybody knows the truth. You can't escape it. They're incapable of telling a lie. It is a cooperative effort among them, and those who are wiser will give experiences or recommendations or even suggestions. But as a whole, they all agree together what they're going to do. Some people say it's a communal thing. I'm not sure I see it that way, but it's part of the process of how they do act and react to what goes on around them. They have
Yeah.
it,
Yeah, this was one of the questions I really had because I never saw any evidence of government in all the contactee stories that, people I've researched. There's no federalized system. These
correct.
are ETs who are, working together in groups. So I think, they don't have money. It's a completely different type of society than we live here. And I think this is one of the reasons why there is a cover-up, because if the government allowed people to realize that we are not alone and there's a different way of life and we truly don't need money and that there's enough for all, they would lose control. They're pushing an alien threat narrative, which is not true. It's not supported by the evidence. The only alien threat is the threat to the 1%ers, the power elite, who will lose control over the people. That's the alien threat. It's the threat to their power structure, which is falling apart. And the cover-up that they have been putting in place for, 80 years has become a complete disaster. People now know that the government is lying. Most people believe this. About 10% of the population claims to have had encounters. I think it's much higher than that, but over 50% believe that this is a real phenomena, and our government is only disclosing, not willingly, but I think because they want to control the narrative, and that if they don't start disclosing, they will lose complete control over how people feel about this phenomena. I think it's 2 days from now, there's supposed to be a congressional committee talking about UFOs, and they have said outright that this is a real phenomena. They initially blamed, foreign powers, China, Russia. They're now saying, no, this is extraterrestrial. So we're seeing real movement here, but we have to be very careful. They're going to push forth the narrative that this is bad for us, and it's not. They have been around for millennia, forever. We know this. Really? They're going to take over now? We're that special? No. It makes zero sense. If you look at the actual evidence and what happens to people when they're taken on board real quick is they're physically examined. They're healed. They're taken to the engine room, shown how the craft works. They take you up to the observation deck, show you all the stars, Saturn, the moon, another planet. They give you warnings. They educate you. They boost your psychic abilities. These are all very positive things. We need to take an objective look at what is actually happening to people who are in contact with ETs, because it is good news for us.
And what is the very best evidence that Dolly has? You've mentioned video and pictures and medicals that you're not going to release the medical evidence, but if you could produce one great piece of evidence to collaborate these stories in the book, what would it be?
It's not just one piece of evidence, really. I've talked to a lot of contactees, and many of them rely pretty much solely on eyewitness testimony. And pretty much as a rule, they will have some sort of medical evidence. And certainly Dolly does have that, evidence of implants, marks on the body, this sort of thing. Most contactees do have corroborative witnesses. Dolly has plenty of those, including myself. I have seen her UFOs personally. We met at UFO Con last year, the Laughlin Conference, and I saw the UFOs. She filmed them. This film on that sighting made the news in Arizona, the evening news. We watched it together going, wow, look. She has multiple moving films, and that is not common. A lot of contactees do not get that. And when Dolly went public, she's like, listen, I'm going to need some evidence, because she had tried to take photographs, and it's very difficult to do. If you point your camera at a UFO, often it will power down. I have so many cases like this. I had a case with 12 people on Catalina Island. A UFO was hovering for over an hour. 4 of them were professional photographers. Nearly all of them had cameras. Every single camera failed. All their flashlights, all their watches stopped at the same time. If they do not want you to take a picture, you won't be able to take a picture. And
It
they
has
don't.
more to do with proximity. If they come down close enough for you to get a good shot of them, the craft actually emit an electromagnetic pulse, and it's like it'll knock out any electronic device you have, including your car battery.
Yeah, but Dolly does have plenty of. You have a YouTube channel where you've posted.
Yes, I do.
About
Yeah.
6 or a dozen of some of these daylight footage. By the way, in one where the Talata.
What's it called? The YouTube channel. Sorry to interrupt.
Dolly Saffron.
Okay.
We just stuck to land. Yeah.
I mean, in one of these videos, you can see the craft come right down over the house, close up, a few hundred feet. I'm not sure this is going to convince diehard skeptics. And this is, again, a technique ETs do. They will not give absolute conclusive proof to people who are not ready to handle it. People who are going to be so emotionally upset, it's going to destroy their belief system. They're very careful about that. They are very respectful of a person's autonomy. So if you are, say, super religious and they pull you on board, they're not going to, destroy your belief system. They're going to work with you to educate you and raise your consciousness and teach you, what they know to the best of your ability to absorb it.
What is their interest in nuclear weapons? Do they talk to you much about that? Because we always hear about the sightings over these nuclear silos.
It's horrifying to them. They absolutely do not want us engaging in them at all. The elements that we have here are very nuclear dirty, and they have more than too long a half-life, and they don't burn completely. They leave garbage behind, they leave tons of stuff that we have to deal with and move around. It is deadly to human life, absolutely deadly. We've proven that to ourselves. Nobody should be not realizing that. The other thing is that we live in a dimensional space, and when you let off an energy wave like that, it does stuff into the dimensional space that you're in. We're not only affecting us, we're affecting them as well, who live with us here in this. And it's quite horrible. They've gone over this planet shutting down silos. They gave NORAD a bad day one day. They shut them down. They're trying to make sure that they understand to stop it. They don't like it at all.
Yeah, there was a meeting at Edwards Air Force Base in 1954, allegedly, with President Eisenhower. A lot of researchers have looked into this. Most who do have come away saying that it was real, and they advised us to stop messing around with nuclear power. We did not want to do it. I don't think it's a coincidence that shortly later there was the flyover of Washington, D.C. in the White House. They are very concerned about nuclear materials and our use of them. I've talked to many people who've been involved in incidents who were perhaps on board a submarine that carried nuclear-tipped torpedoes. I talked to one guy, and a USO came right up and paced their submarine for 15 minutes. Everyone saw it. This was not written in the log. It was covered up. I talked to another guy, Gary Wagner. He was on the USS Long Beach off the coast of Southern California, a nuclear-powered missile cruiser. UFOs showed up there. I've talked to a guy who was involved in the Malmstrom incident in 1967, where they shut down some 20 intercontinental nuclear-tipped missiles. Shut them down. They did not destroy them. They did not take them away. They just sent a message like, we can shut these down. What are you doing? It was not a hostile act. It was a message. And as Dolly says, I've heard this from other contactees, that when we explode nuclear bombs or materials in any way, it creates ripples into other dimensions far beyond the third dimension, and also has, permanently poisons our own planet. This is a number one concern for them. They cannot believe that we are that stupid to even consider using nuclear weapons.
Do you think they would do something if a nuclear war were to start, or is there anything they could do about it?
This is the hard part about allowing autonomy to rule. It is a unforgiving and absolute law of the universe. If you decide to do something, you could be talked to about it, you could be educated about it, you can be brought to the understanding that you shouldn't do it, but the decision still rests in your hands. And as a collective consciousness on this planet, the people here who've decided that this is a good thing and they're going to do it, whatever their reasons are, still are going to do it, and they will not be stopped. There are two reasons why. You're an eternal being. You don't really die. And if this is your karma to be here in this horrifying situation and exit this lifetime this way, that's what's going on. And they have no right to interfere with that. We were put here to evolve. We were put here to ascend, to catch up with them and become part of their society. We're not doing that right now. It's an existential crisis of huge proportion. And we all need to, that's another reason to wake up. This is imperative that we get together about this, because we're about to annihilate ourselves. And they don't want to see that happen. They plan to rescue us from a lot of it, but we still hold the trigger on the disaster if that's what we want to do.
Yeah, I personally would welcome the alien overlords and come down, take over. I wish they would. They could not be doing worse than our own leaders, who I don't trust. They're liars. We know this. And I've talked to contactees who've asked directly, like, why don't you just come down? And, because I talked to a couple in Arizona, Sedona, who said, we weren't abducted. We were invited on board. It was a very pleasant experience. They were hybrids, sort of half braised, half humanoid. They healed the husband of carpal tunnel syndrome and a problem with his knee. And the wife asked, like, why don't you just heal everyone? Why don't you come down and solve our problems? And they said, we can't do that. You would never learn. It's up to you to solve your own problems. We cannot do this for you. We can only guide and help. And to a certain extent, we will intervene. And they will particularly do so with people who are working very hard to help others. But ultimately, it's up to us to solve our own problems.
Right. Talata used to say this to me a lot when I was young. He was trying to help me fathom through this. When you create an issue, it is up to you to fix it, nobody else. That is the most basic part of humanity and how we learn. If you can't learn that lesson, you're in a lot of trouble, because you're going to do a lot of bad things. And there's nothing anybody can do to stop it. Not even them. Sadly true. And that's one of the basic understandings that humanity needs to wake up to. Everybody needs to, I would dearly have I'm sure in a past lifetime I've faced these situations just like everybody else, and I've had moments in this lifetime where I've had to control myself and only give back love when I'm being handed hate, or give back peace when I'm being handed attack and destruction. And I've only defended myself twice in life, to the point that I had to defend myself because they would have taken me out. But I didn't hurt them or kill them. I stopped them. But it's still up to me. It's because I put myself in that situation, and so do we all here. And it's the one biggest lesson we all need to learn, to stop it ourselves. Period.
Now, this is one of your UFO videos. I just took a look at your channel here. Could you explain what this one was here?
Okay. This is Talata. He's coming down. I don't hear the volume, so I don't know what I'm saying, but it's probably, I had a friend with me, Yvonne Watson was with me. She's a paranormal investigator, and she graciously drove me from Las Vegas to the conference. It was like a 2 or 3 hour drive after flying all day. I was exhausted. And we were watching him come down far enough for me to get pictures of him. I have a camera with a good zoom on it, so he wasn't so close he was going to knock me out, but that's Talata.
Okay, so did they actually come out of the craft that day to see you, or is that just that's the
No,
feeling
it was
itself?
not. It was not a good idea. He had been in the air following me all day long. He sort of protects me. He watches over me. So he was in a lot of places that day. I guarantee you, NORAD knew he was up there, and he wasn't going to do anything to start anything with anybody. So he stayed. Uh, he came in only as close as he dared. It's not up to them to start a war with us, and he wasn't going to do that. He gave me the opportunity and the moment to get his shots, and then he got out of there.
So these things do show up on radar then.
Absolutely, they can be seen. If they're visible to your eyes, they're visible to radar. Yes.
Okay, very interesting. And you shot that with your cell phone?
Yeah, I got a Samsung 10S, and that's what I used.
Now, what about this one?
This is an AI drone. It is ET. It's bigger than a car, like a Suburban, And he's showing. My neighbor was with me. She's watching. Okay, he was showing off. I don't know how much you know about drones, but giant drones cannot do a controlled rollover, and he was showing off. He was anti-grav at that moment, and he was rolling over to show that what he could do. This is who watches me. I'm constantly surveilled by drones. They let Talata know I'm in danger or whatever, and he instantly shows up. But that's a drone, and there are lots of them.
What kind of danger would you be in, for example?
Well, because of my life and everything that I've lived and done, they're very well aware of who I am, and I am surveilled constantly. And testing can attest to that. And
I
I've
sure
spent,
can. Saw it myself.
yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, Dolly has a lot of knowledge that our government wants. It's funny, I just recently did a study of ET symbols. Betty Hill, very famous contactee, was taken on board, and they showed her this ET book type thing, which had symbols in it. And Dolly's like, really? They showed her symbols. I'm like, yeah. She's like, please send them to me. I want to look at them. Dolly has pretty much stayed away from the UFO scene. So I sent them on over, and Dolly was like, oh my gosh, I know what these symbols mean. And it was very cool because this was something that had been quite a mystery for decades. And Dolly was able to translate them. And basically what it was, these symbols, was sort of a flight manual. And we went down through each of the symbols. I think there was like 10 of them, if I'm right, Dolly.
Yes, 10.
And like one was a craft. And then, I mean, you can probably remember it better than I, but like one's
Shows the
turn
craft.
right.
You're gonna do a right turn. When we do a right turn, the way electromagnetic fields work, we have to skiff up and then skiff down in the turn. And it's to ride the wave. Electromagnetic field lines are not stationary. They're not a perfect grid. They move like the ocean. All energy does. All energy fluctuates. So the way we do the turn is very specific. Skip up, skip down. And then we have to straighten out and we have to fly level for a few minutes because we can become turbulent at that point and run off the field line or whatever. So then you straighten out. The next thing it says to do is check your heads-up display. And you're looking at your heads-up display to see where all the energy is located after you did that turn and what you're going to do next. And basically, after you do a turn, it slows you down to the point that you need to power up. So you're going to get ready to power up, and you power up. And then you go at speed. We don't just go 0 miles an hour and then go 5, 10, 15, 20, 30. We go from 0 to 7,000 like that. That's how fast we move.
Yeah, so these are the things that our secret government, I'll call them, really want to know. And Dolly, as someone who's been trained to pilot these craft, this is very valuable knowledge to our government, who has these craft and are trying desperately to learn how to use them, reverse engineer them, and so forth. So this is why Dolly has been surveilled throughout her life, ever since she was a little girl. And it's not unusual. This happens to many contactees. I had a contactee who is very much conscious, like Dolly, has gone under hypnosis. Dolly does not need hypnosis to recall her experiences, but this lady did. And she had all her hypnosis tapes stolen. Someone broke into her house and took them. Guy in upstate New York, I was researching his case. I said, write everything down. Write everything you remember, because he was planning on going under hypnosis. And this is something I always recommend to people. First, write down everything you remember. This will keep it straight. Someone broke into his house, stole his contact notes. He called the police, and they're like, well, sorry, we can't really do much. That's just notes. They didn't take the stereo, the TV, the money, nothing. This is what contactees are dealing with. Phone problems, email problems, constant surveillance. Dolly has sent me really good evidence of this. I mean, there's almost always some SUV out there following her. And I saw it myself when we went to the conference in Laughlin. I'm like, Dolly, I think this car is following us. And it followed us to the Airbnb we were at, and then parked right in front of the driveway, blocking it. Unbelievable.
Someone wanted to know, how many years have you been public about this?
Less than 4 months. I mean, I've gone wide open public. Preston knew about me. People who have personal contact with me, friends, personal friends, and things like that know. Some of my family knows things like that, but it's always generally been held close to the chest. And I didn't show what I could do at all to anybody until I was doing CE5s in Georgia, and Brian Sims was the leader of our group. And I would go to the CE5s and help out and do what I could. And one day he called me up and he said, Dolly, I have a sister who's lost a cat. We can hear it, but we don't know where the hell it is. And he didn't even tell me it was a cat at that point. He said, we have a problem. And I said, what am I going to do? And he said, please figure it out for us. Can you help me? And I knew in that moment he was testing me out, and it was a real situation. So I remote viewed this animal. It was in the air ducts in the house. And I told them where it was. I told them what they had to do to get it out. They worked diligently. I finally told them, if you're just quiet and quit banging on the pipes, it'll probably crawl out. And then I realized it was too far down. It was too small a cat. So Talat and I levitated him out. And they found him the next morning running around the room. He went wild. And he had a little podcast of his own. He was just starting that out. And he said, I'm going to put you on the podcast, okay? And I think this was in 2019 when I talked to him. So that's my real first step out. I think he had maybe 7 subscribers then, and it just went from there. I had already found Preston, and we were talking, and then I decided that I wasn't going to do any more of that or show myself to anybody until Preston finished a book that became paramount important to me. And so that's, the book just came out.
And I do want to reiterate one thing, because I saw it in the chat that popped up, is Dolly is not paid a single penny. I do not pay people for interviews. And me personally, while I do have put out a number of books, I worked full time for 35 years. I just recently, stopped because of the whole world situation. But no, I'm not rich by any means. You don't make a lot of money off of UFO books. It's a very niche market. But no, Dolly has not gotten paid one dime for any of this. And in fact, has gone forward, public, at great personal expense to people
Right.
who are disbelievers or debunkers,
Right.
and so forth. So this is very difficult. It was a difficult decision for her, but I just wanted to reiterate that no, she's not getting paid a dime for any of
Right.
this.
People have asked me to do psychic work for them, and I will from time to time. Depends on the need of the person and what I perceive is going on with them. I don't charge for that either. Everything I do is given. It's a gift. It's my personal way to help people. That's part of the issue with humanity. We have to take care of one another. You can't truly be happy unless you're helping somebody or doing the right thing. And I can't charge money for that. It's not right. I can't. It can't happen.
And this is the final video I'll put up of yours, because obviously I'm not going to download the ball. You can go to Dolly's channel to look at more of these, but could you tell us what's going on here?
Okay, that's the same drone you saw before, only you're going to see him do the full flip over. I told him, dude, do it again. And so he did. And watching an actual giant drone about 500 feet over our head do a rollover, which
So
is physically impossible for any technology you have on this planet right now. They cannot do a controlled rollover.
have you been in any, I know this is a drone, but have you been in any of their craft when they do anything crazy like that would
Yeah,
affect?
that drone's big enough for me to ride in, absolutely. And if I was to be emergency lifted out now, they would come with a drone to get me out. They can do that. I've flown in all kinds of craft. They have quite a few, and I've been on, the biggest thing I've ever been on is an actual, what you would call a planetoid, like a described Dyson sphere in your, science journals. And it was way out in the universe, and was there. It's ginormous. I mean, it's huge, bigger than our planet. And it was full of all kinds of stuff. They had 3 different kinds of water bodies in it, every kind of animal you can imagine. They had people from all over the universe in it. They use it to rest, relax, transport animals. It's just an all-purpose place for them to go. And it has its own small magnetosphere. It protects them quite a bit to get to where they're going. The window that you have to open up for that thing is huge to be able to transfer. And so it takes more than 5 minutes to get that going. And so it is almost like a giant boat in the middle of the universe. They have several, though. They're all over the place. So,
did they talk to you at all about these cattle mutilations? Do you feel they're behind these cattle mutilations that we see happening all over the place?
no, absolutely not. Our government is running a false flag, and they're doing everything, and this has been planned for a long time. This is an absolute constructed lie to make you believe that ET is cruel, vicious, and hurting people and things. Not true. Absolutely not true.
Yeah, and I can say that having researched cattle mutilations for my books, UFOs over Colorado and UFOs over New Mexico, I looked deeply into it. And I was quite surprised to hear the leading researchers in this topic say, no, we don't think it's ET. We think the government is behind this. And there's good evidence of it because there's all of these black helicopters around. And yes, people talk about, well, these cuts, there's laser-like cuts and, there's no blood and blah, blah, blah. And these cow are being dropped from above. Yes, that's true. But remember, some of the UFOs flying around are our own reverse engineered craft.
Yeah.
And a lot of the technology that we have today is decades old.
I can tell you for a fact that we've had laser technology since I was a very small child. I was shown the first laser when I was I think I was 7. Actual laser operating. Saw it with my own 2 eyes. Saw it. We have the ability in surgery now to do precision AI-guided surgery with laser technology that leaves no blood, leaves very minimal damage to the skin and whatever. So when you hear somebody say, oh, it's perfect, laser cuts. We could have done that. That's an absolute lie. They're preying on your lack of understanding and knowledge at that point. They're using gossip and lies to make you believe something that's not true.
Someone asked earlier, have the aliens talked to you at all about COVID and what they feel about this whole COVID thing that's still going around, but apparently we just don't care about it anymore as they've lifted all the restrictions?
We're intelligent beings. We're very smart. We have the ability to do many things. I mean, look, they've learned the genome. They can identify genetics. They know how to manipulate things. They can clone you now. Here, humans are very, very intelligent. What you don't realize is how intelligent and how many people are trained to do these things. That being said, anything you see that is made on this planet, and I'm using the operative word here, made, constructed, comes from us, not them, period. They have never in the history of all time done anything like that to us, ever. There's no evidence of that whatsoever.
And the final question I'll ask you for today, because you've been generous with your time, is one that came up from several fans. Has the government tried to hire you or talk to you about your experiences up to this point?
When I was less than 5 years old, they knew my dad because of what he did. Had a kid that was exceptionally psychic. He was watched, and they knew it. And they somehow talked him into putting me into the MK Ultra program in Homestead Air Force Base. I was inducted into it, and they were testing me. After day 3, a friend of his who was a general said, get her out now, you'll never see her again. They were already, champing at the bit. We want her. They got me out. They rescued me from it. My father changed our lives around enough to protect me from them and my brother. Attempts have been made to abduct me by this government, this alt government, more than one time. That's why ET is on me all the time now. They do not leave me alone. I am totally 100% protected. Yes, they would like to get their hands on me, and I'm not going to be available. That's my period. Not if I can help it.
Are the ETs watching what you're saying right now?
Yeah, they hear me right now. Yes, they hear everything. Yeah.
Interesting.
They watch you too, Devin. They watch us all.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody else said that they would likely be interested in videos regarding them. So it made me wonder that.
Yeah, I've put enough information out now that they understand that what they're facing. I want to tell you something. There are no underground ET bases on this planet. They are not in cooperation with them at all. 0%. None. They have tried to make contact with us, these governments, and found out that, nope, bad idea, I'm not going there. They know that is a waste of their time, totally. Anything that you hear from the government is a lie. And there's so many mythologies and misinformations and gossip out there now that I don't think there are 10 people on this planet. Well, maybe more than that. I'll give y'all a heads up. It's probably a couple 100,000 people know the truth on this whole planet. Other than that, nope. You walking around the streets every day do not know the truth. And the only way you're going to find it out is if you're able to communicate with them and hear it for yourself, see it for yourself. Period.
And the link to purchase the book is in the description of this video if you want to know much more details about Dolly's story. Preston and Dolly, where can people follow you guys for more information? I know Preston's all over Facebook.
I haven't been that public yet. Usually when I'm talking to everybody, I leave with one thing that I want y'all to start trying to do. Russell Targ, who did work for the government, was probably one of the most psychic human beings on this planet in generations. And he developed, and his teams developed, a psychic trainer. It is available from the Play Store. You can get it on for an iPhone, an Android, or for your PC. It's a simple little game where you start using your abilities, and it tracks you to see when you're getting it right and when you're getting wrong. It's the first step in learning how to tap into your own psychic channel. I also leave a word with this. This is not something I can do for you. You have to do this for yourself. It's imperative, and you have to practice. like a small child learning to walk, or a kid learning how to ride a bike, or anybody learning how to do a sport. Practice, practice, practice. One of the ways you do this is you meditate and you learn to block out all the negative around you and go within. Open up your pineal gland. You'll see an eye when you do, and start listening to the universe and talk to it. Point blank. Talk to ET. They'll communicate. Use your abilities, period. Drink clean, fresh water, not disinfected water or, real spring water. In other words, be very choosy about what you put in your body. Lots of it. The way your body purifies itself is by throwing water through you. That's why the doctors tell you, drink, 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 drink. It's the only thing that cleanses your body out, period. Detox. The reason they don't want you.
Yeah, and meditate and move beyond fear. That's what really people need to do. That's one of the ET messages for sure. Yep.
Very good. And again, the link is in the description, and I'll let you two close this off with whatever you want to say. Thanks again for coming on. Very interesting information. Hopefully I'll get some type of visit before I pass away, because I would really like that.
You probably will. I think one day everyone here on Earth will know this is a real phenomena. I think open official contact is inevitable. But yeah, if you want more information, I have a YouTube channel. I have a website. The books are on Amazon. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. This is a subject I take very seriously. I think it has the potential to change the world. I know there are skeptics out there, but if you're skeptical, do your homework, and I think you will come away convinced. And my last word would be, do not fear this. It is not a nefarious phenomenon. It's not demonic. It is something that is very good news for humanity. They are people like us, more alike us than different.
Yep. And my last words are, Talata wrote a poem in the front of the book. It's self-explanatory. It's about love. And I wrote a poem also, and it's about time and how we use it. And they're important. Love, unconditionally love. Go forth. Drop everything else. Just remember that you are part of a whole, and everybody needs help. Everybody. We all do.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please help me out and like this video, then click the subscribe and get notifications buttons